At the end of your life, are you going to look back and think, I should have, would have, could have?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be like, I did it. I tried and it didn't work, and that's okay, but at least I tried it. Like, kudos to all of those people that tried.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Dobson and welcome to part 3 of my chat with Sarah Selhi. Sarah Selhi is the co-founder and CEO of SpaceiShare, which is an Airbnb for storage space. If you haven't caught parts 1 and 2 of my chat with Sarah, please check them out. Now let's go to part 3. My question is failure okay? Not in your case, but in general. Like, do you view failure as something that's completely negative and should be avoided at all costs? Or is it something that perhaps has some positive aspects to it as well?
So I think the mindset of Canadians versus Americans is quite different.
Okay.
In Silicon Valley, they hope that you've had a failure or 2 or 3. It's almost one of those things that it's going to happen, it's inevitable. And I would say that, so yes, failure is absolutely okay. You need to fail in order to figure out what it is you did wrong, learn from your experiences. I feel like I've failed forward my entire life. There's all kinds of things that I did that I didn't continue. I would call that a failure. I would call part of my life in SpaceiShare a failure. Like, there were all kinds of times where we failed, but it was like, oh, well, we'll just keep going. But we could have turned in the towel and it would have been a failure and it would have been okay.
Like, for example, when you had your issue with the payment processing.
Yeah, the
system.
payment processing, huge fail. You know, going and having all these other technical problems, losing my co-founders, having all these other issues with the platform, and just not raising the money we needed at the time that we needed it. Like, all of these things were just, well, I failed at that and I failed at that, and I've been trying to do this for 3 years and this is not working. And, you know, it becomes very exhausting. So there's part of it is like, be persistent and keep going.
Yeah.
And then there's that part where it's like, learn when to throw the towel in and say, okay, I'm done and I'm going to go on to something else, because you never know what's going to happen. And even when I did end up I was a general manager at another startup, and I feel like that for myself was a failure in that I couldn't get the relationship to work with the CEO of the company. I didn't necessarily see eye to eye on the way we were executing. Mm-hmm. And as much as I tried to put a lot of time and effort and love into that, I just felt like I had to walk away. So that for me was a big failure. Going back to corporate after that would never have led me to what I'm doing now, because I probably wouldn't have launched my company if I had not had the support from the 2 people who became my co-founders. Because I think when I first started, I wouldn't have felt confident to do it on my own.
Okay.
It took a while for me to feel like, okay, I can do this. You know, not so much on my own, because I obviously have a team and I have people that I consider, you know, people that are in it just as much with me. But it did take, the confidence had to come at some point, and certainly even working in that other startup, it took a while for me to feel like I could be a leader as opposed to somebody in sales, because I'd literally gone from a salesperson to a general manager at a startup. So that for me was really a big jump. Mm-hmm. And I had to really step into that role and feel like I deserved it. Because at the time, as much as I'd had the experience that made it a perfect position for me, I didn't believe that I was necessarily going to do the best job. So I think we all have to talk ourselves into things that we don't necessarily think. Everyone else sees it, but you may not see it yourself. And that's just a result of being human. We all do that.
Interesting. Okay, so it's basically, in your opinion, failure is okay.
Totally.
And it's something that perhaps will get you closer to what you should be doing,
right,
what you will be successful at.
Yep.
And it will help you by giving you some sort of experience in your background on your resume.
Yep.
Instead of being something that should be, you know, avoided at all costs and something that's super scary.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that. You know, at the end of your life, are you going to look back and think, I should have, would have, could have?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be like, I did it, I tried and it didn't work, and that's okay, but at least I tried it. Like, kudos to all of those people that try. Like, the moment you get out of the gate and you have that opportunity to start something, it's like high fives all around. Like, good for you for doing that.
Yeah.
And I remember recently I was in San Francisco, and we were doing this very small 2-day accelerator with Jason Calacanis, and he's a gentleman who invested. He was number 3 investor in Uber, and now he's very well known in the community. And he one of the things he said is, you're going to come to the front of the room and talk about your traction, and a lot of you are going to feel really embarrassed about it. And he's like, I get pitched all day by people who have ideas and they never even make an effort to do it. He's like, you guys are out in the world, you're putting one step in front of the other, and you're doing it, and you're making it happen. Even if you made $100, that's like $100 that someone else didn't have the guts to do. So pat yourself on the back and be like, I'm glad I did it. So it doesn't matter if you failed, but at least you tried.
That's awesome. I really like that. I was inspired just in that moment listening to it.
I thought it was a great advice.
No, it's actually so true though, because it's very hard to execute on an idea.
Yeah.
It's easier to have an idea.
Oh yeah. People are full of them.
So talking about people being full of ideas.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's someone watching out there today and they have an idea of their own.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to execute on it, like where to start.
Yeah.
What's your advice for them?
So the first thing I would say is, I have a couple of things to say. Like, one is, it's really a tough road. I don't want to sugarcoat it and say it's going to be easy. I'm sure you've never heard that it's going to be easy, but it's one of those things where you really have to do a gut check and think, do I love this idea enough that I'm willing to run out of all the money I have, that I'm willing to go to my families and ask them for money, that I'm willing to give up the lifestyle that I'm possibly used to, right? Like, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, going to the spa, like having a nice dinner. Some of those things you forego, all of them you might forego and eat ramen noodles for the next 6 months. Like, I don't know what your situation is, but give yourself a really good gut check. Do you have dependents? Do you have runway? All those type of things. It's not for those who are already holding on by fingernails in their life. Unless you're really good at being able to make a lot of money fast. And if you are, kudos to you. But I would just say, make sure you love the idea enough that it's worth taking the jump for, because it is something that at the end of the day, your biggest question is going to be, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? And if it's just so I can make money, so I can get rich, so I can do this, it's not enough to keep you going. You have to either be inspired by what you're doing, and maybe you're promoting something in the world that is an extension of who you are as a person, and that's like a metaphor for your life. And that's like, I really want people to eat vegan cookies. Great, then do that. But if you don't have a really good why, then maybe you should keep going a little bit further and forward and figure it out a little bit more.
Interesting. Okay, so it's basically sell yourself on the idea first and make sure that you're fully committed to it. And then take that leap. Because, like you've mentioned in our previous conversation, you yourself have had points where you thought, you felt very low and you thought, should I continue this? Is this worth it? Should I just give up? Would that just be easier? And of course, everybody's going to have those moments. And I think you need to have in your mind why you're doing this at those times. Otherwise, you're more likely to give up. So this makes a lot of sense. Okay. Going full circle now. What advice would you have for maybe high school seniors that aren't sure what to study at the university level, having gone through it yourself?
The advice I would have for people is that it's okay if you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes just getting to university or getting to college or to higher learning, despite the fact you may be like rifled with some pretty severe payments after
debt,
which is the debt is a horrible part, so do your best to manage it and try to get your parents to pay for it. But I would say it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Try to do something that you are as interested in as you can. At the end of the day, everything you learn there is going to translate into some kind of skill.
And now shifting to the future, where would you ultimately like to take this company in the future? Like, what's your dream for this company?
I see us as being I guess I'll keep this a Canadian reference, but like the Kijiji for space. Okay. So basically, if you're looking for something, if you're looking for space, you would go to our platform first. So it's like, I need space for whatever it is, and I'm going to go to SpaceiShare to find it. So our marketplace will cover all different things space. It doesn't necessarily have to be storage or vehicle storage. It could be other types of space. For example. Could be a venue or something. Yeah. But it's one of those things where it will just be known as being the place to go if you have space and you want to share it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is it a company that you'd like to build out long term, or would you be open to an earlier exit?
I've been asked that more recently, and I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. So my thinking is that like Angie's List ended up being taken over by a bigger group, and then they ended up making it a bigger company. I know Nancy from Homestars here in Toronto ended up selling her company to the same company that bought Angie's List. And so I think, however long that you pass the baton, I think I'm good at taking the company to a certain level, and however fast we get there, I'm totally comfortable with passing that baton to somebody who might want to grow it from a $10 million to a $15 million company. At the same time, I'm ready to get right in there and be like, all right, great, we've got like work to do, and we're going to make this really big and be the visionary person for long term. So I think as long as I get some travel in there for a while that I can actually do, and take a little break from the daily grind, then I think I'm open to whatever comes.
Okay, so it sounds like basically you're open to
different possibilities.
Staying open to whatever comes along.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
All right. Would you be concerned? Would you be happy? How would you feel if, for example, Airbnb, a giant in the space sharing industry, decided to get into the storage sharing space tomorrow?
So that's been a question I've asked myself a long time, especially in the beginning. It was like, okay, who else is doing this?
Yeah.
Who could do this? What makes the most sense? And so I will say that Airbnb is going very much down that travel experience route. It's all about travel. It's all about going to new places, new lands, and experiencing new things. So I don't think storage is all that sexy enough for them to be like, hey, let's just, it's a very different business model. So, but if Airbnb suddenly did something like that, we would pivot in a way. I've always been very cognizant of staying out of other big companies' way. I want to make sure whatever we're doing is not overlapping too much with other things, because I don't want to be in a space where we're, a competitor up against a big giant.
Yeah.
I want to be as innovative as possible, thinking about ways of doing things that are different than everyone else. And I feel like the team that we have, they're so smart that we would just adapt accordingly.
Would you be interested in partnering with giant like Airbnb?
Sure, those guys are awesome. I'm very inspired by their story too. They're one of those stories that had such a challenge trying to pitch people and get people to buy into their vision. And now you can rent couches to castles for them, and everyone around the world knows them. So I think they would be nothing but short of inspirational to be working under or with. So if there was ever that opportunity, then absolutely.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so now if you're looking into the future as the CEO of SpaceiShare, what do you fear most?
I guess, I never thought about that, because my instinct is like, oh, it's nothing I fear, because it's all going to work out exactly how it should. But I guess the one thing I would fear most is we build it up to become really big, and suddenly my decisions turn it into something not so good. Like, suddenly we get to a high point, and then we make a few bad moves, and all of a sudden it's no longer as big as it used to be. Like
there's a decline in your business because of some decisions you've made.
Right. If I was the sole person responsible for that, I think that would be certainly very fearful when I've got that much pressure to maintain a successful company, especially when you have investors on board and people are looking to you as being that beacon of success or growth. So I guess me being involved in that would probably really stress me out. And or suddenly a competitor comes in with way more money and just like knocks us right out of the marketplace, like an Airbnb. Like that's probably the second worst, like another big thing that could happen where you're just like, oh damn, I guess I better run back to that corporate job or something, or jump on someone else's successful company.
It's interesting that you say that though, because even after you spend this many years building the company up and you've gone through so much, you've had so many experiences along the way, and now you're thinking down the line into the future where you would have had even more experiences, even more, just even more time to see how the world operates, and for you to say that you would still be worried that it's a decision that I made that is causing the downturn of the company. I think it just speaks to, at the end of the day, people are people, and they're afraid that, if I make a decision, something could go wrong. And that's the same mentality that someone that is just starting out today is thinking, well, should I go down this route or down this route? Because if I choose the wrong route, it could break my company. And now we're thinking, let's say 20 years from now, you're still having that same thought. People, I guess, go back to basics and always maybe fear the same things, even though they've had many experiences along the way. So it's quite interesting that you said that. Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, like you said, people are people, and it doesn't matter if you're like a young kid who's just come out of school to a seasoned professional. I think we all self-doubt. We all hold our head high and hope that it doesn't appear how afraid we are, or how stuff isn't going as well as we'd hoped and things. And you look at someone like Zuckerberg, who's done such a great job with this company in many ways, and yet is under the scrutiny of like so many things right now that,
of course,
or like if you look at Uber's CEO, he took it to such a big company, and there's just all these potential downfalls that can happen when you get on top of your castle.
Especially because at that point you're probably more in the
spotlight, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people are throwing darts at your way, right? So it's like, ooh. At that point, you might just be like, okay, time to retire and pass the baton. But I think it doesn't matter how far in your journey you are as a human being. You'll always self-doubt. You'll always not be sure if you're making the right move, and as Gary Vee says, you just flip a coin and go with it. So
perfect. Okay, well, my last question is, how can people find out more about SpaceiShare and use the platform themselves?
Sure. Well, SpaceiShare.com is where you would find us. If anyone had any questions, they could always email us.
It's up there as
well. SpaceiShare, all one word. And then always happy to get in touch if they just email info@SpaceiShare.com. Somebody will be there to help them with any space sharing questions they may have.
Perfect. Okay, sounds great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, that was great.
I learned a lot. Thank you.